Greetings Taurus, and a warm welcome to your in-depth year 2024 astrology and horoscope forecast. This is for the sun or the ascendant. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how I'm going to structure the video. In October 2023 there are two eclipses, a solar on the 14th and a lunar in your sign on the 28th. They're still going to be active through the first 4 months of the new year, so we need to explore those to begin with. Then at the turn of the year we can take a snapshot of where all the planets are, and that gives us a solar return for the following 12 months and a likely indication of the areas of activity that are going to be critical for your sign in particular. Now, one of the things that's really exciting about that is there's a grand Earth trine between Jupiter in your sign, the planet of growth, but also the Sun and the Moon, and that's very, very providential. But once I've shared with you about the solar return, which provides that backdrop, I'm going to dive into the eclipses that we're going to have in year 2024 itself. We continue to have the axis across the signs of Aries and Libra, but we also get an interloper which comes in September. A new eclipse series comes through the axis of Virgo and Pisces. So the Pisces lunar eclipse, which occurs in September, is very close to the mysterious energies of Neptune. So that would give you an overview of the big picture of this year. And of course, in terms of the nodal position, the lunar nodes continue for the whole of this year, going through your 12th, the north, and your 6th, the south nodes. But what's really intriguing is at the end of February, the north node connects with Chiron, the wounded healer, in a very tender part of your situation. But then I'm going to go on to share with you about communications, because Mercury, the planet of communications, is going to spend a really extended time in the sign of Aries this year, 10 weeks. And that could be a little bit challenging, to be honest, because of course it's going to go through a retrograde. But I will go on to share the other Mercury transitions this year. There is going to be more emphasis on fire, but we also have a taste of earth as we go into the autumn months as well. But then I want to look at Jupiter, the planet of growth and hope, in your sign through till May, but then it moves into your sector of potentially good fortune when it comes to luck and loot. But what about how you're going to initiate things? So we need to look at when Mars is in your sign. We also need to look at the Taurus new moon, and that will give you a real supercharged boost to push forwards into the year. But what about in terms of your professional situation? So that's very much to do with Pluto. Transformations are possible there, but Pluto is going to head back into Capricorn later this year briefly, so I'll share that with you. We also have Saturn and Neptune in your sector of friendship, but also your longer term hopes, and both go into long retrogrades as usual. What's the implications for that? But also when it comes to your love life, Venus, your ruler, goes through your 5th house and your 7th house, the 5th house of fun and of socializing, mixing and mingling, but also the potential to fall in love. But it also makes its way through your sector of relating. Now, in both situations, Venus in the sign of Virgo, your 5th house, will be in its fall, and then when it goes through your 7th house, it will be in its detriment. So I need to unpick that for you too. And that brings us to the end of the year and giving you a real broad understanding of all the different themes that are going to play out for you in particular. I'd just like to share with you a very special opportunity. If you're watching this video in year 2023, you can order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast based on your unique birth data, and I will prepare for you the rest of year 2023 free of charge. If you're ordering within year 2024, you will get a full 12 months from the exact time of your order. You will also, my special package, get 30% off and your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This will help you to understand the patterns that have repeated themselves in your situation, help you to seize upon the opportunities and get a much more intimate understanding of some of the challenges and how you can work with them future forwards in a more effective way. Please see beneath this video for more information. So Taurus, as we make our way into the new year, the power of the solar eclipse, which occurred on the 14th of October and very close to the South Node in Libra, is still very potent. This is asking you to think about perhaps how you've approached your fitness, your health, but also where you've been of service to others in the past. Is this an area that you can see some growth from? Are there some changes that you can make that will make you more productive in year 2024? But relationships are also going to be part of the equation because the lunar eclipse of the 28th was in your sign, and therefore this is asking you to try to get a balance between what you need for you and what you're prepared to give to others. But there are supportive energies in your solar return which can help you to work forwards very collaboratively with others, but it is going to require some flexibility. So that brings us to that solar return. So on the screen now you can see your chart wheel for the year, and the standout influence without question is the fact that we have that gorgeous grand earth trine. The sun at 10 degrees and 2 minutes in Capricorn, linking with Jupiter in your sign, but both link back to the moon in the sign of Virgo. So that grand earth trine is actually in fiery locations. So house 1 very Arian, house 5 very Leonian, house 9 very Sagittarius. Now you're someone with a real appreciation of security and stability. So the fact that Jupiter can be more enterprising and can be about trade, but also in the first house can be about initiation, gives you encouragement to think that you can try something different. But the sun and the moon are going to anchor the more extravagant energies of Jupiter in a productive way. So that's a really helpful influence that's going to be radiating out all of the year. Don't be surprised if you do some travel, or there's part of you that wants to be much more creative and imaginative in your approach throughout the year. Also, the midpoint, and this picks up the theme of the lunar eclipse in your sign, is at 8 degrees in Scorpio, your opposite sign, but in the 7th house. Very much to do with relating. And it's broadly in an opposition with Jupiter. And I feel that that can be very helpful to you in terms of your relationship situation. And Jupiter's asking you to, at times, give people the benefit of the doubt, which may be difficult to do if we think about the location of Saturn in your sector of friendship, because that's in an opposition with the moon in the part of your scope that's to do with joy and sociability, but crucially of romance itself. So you're going to need to feel that if you are given and taken, weaving into a relationship in a way which is helpful, it may have some long-term potential. And really Saturn's going to be asking you that question for the whole of the year. But when it comes to your monetary situation, you have Venus, your ruler, but also Mercury, the planet of commerce, aligned with Mars in the sign of Sagittarius. That's very enterprising, very encouraging. It's just that if you see Venus is checked by Saturn and also in a square with the moon. Now that's more innocent, to be honest, but that square, it's actually a T-square between the moon, Saturn and Venus, just suggests that if money or intimacy is in this equation, in terms of a greater investment in a romantic situation, you really need to be absolutely sure that it is right for you. So that part of your nature that can be a little bit cautious, don't let that go too much just because Jupiter is in your sign and in that very enterprising, enlivening link with the Sun. Important to stay grounded. Also, when it comes to your financial resources, because Saturn and Neptune are angling in a right angle to Venus, but also in the case of Neptune to Mercury and Mars, that can create some uncertainty about your long-term financial planning, but particularly when it comes to your interaction with friends or groups. So that old maxim of not mixing business with pleasure may be something that you should be mindful of for the whole of the year. Neptune can be very distorting, so with Mercury being detrimented in the sign of Sagittarius, but also just being in retrograde as you start this year, that's giving you a little bit of an alert. It's a red flag to make sure when you're marshalling anything to do with pensions, savings, investments, property matters, you really are meticulously careful, because Sagittarius can be an energy that sees us just think that everything will be fine because of the general optimism that's linked to that sign. So you really need to drill down into the details very carefully, particularly if you're being advised of anything, because Neptune and Mars in particular in a square is a trickster influence, and what you're being told may not necessarily be correct. But the most influential point in any natal chart is the planet, or the position right at the top of that chart. And for you, it is Pluto. There you are, right up in the ninth house, just cresting onto the 10th. So big transformations are possible in terms of your professional situation this year, because by the 21st of January, Pluto will be moving back into the sign of Aquarius. So the part of your nature that really has gained a lot of reassurance over many, many years of knowing what really works for you and feeling comfortable with those routines, it is going to be challenged because, of course, Uranus has been stirring things up enormously in recent years, and actually in a very positive way. Maybe it has been disruptive, but it's opened you up to new experiences, and I feel it has refreshed you positively. But because Pluto sometimes changes things that we're not really quite ready to change, you may not feel that you're totally in control of some of those changes at times. So that's just something to be mindful of. Now I'm going to go on to share with you about the eclipses that are occurring in 2024. Now the first one comes up on the 25th of March, and it's an annular lunar eclipse, and it's back in that 6th house. This is to do with service, it's to do with virtue, organisation, precision. But if you remember, the solar eclipse occurred on the 14th of October. So this lunar eclipse is asking you to check out what progress you've made in terms of getting your situation running that much more smoothly. If, for example, your vitality is low, you have some ways of going about things that provide some escapism from the drudgery of life, like we all have, because of your Venusian ruler, sweet things can be something that can take your fancy at times, or maybe it's splashing out, because that provides a release. And I think this annular lunar eclipse is just asking you, perhaps in a more challenging way, just where are you up to in the process. But then we have a total solar eclipse on the 8th of April. But what makes this particularly complex is it is conjunct the retreating retrograde Mercury. Mercury, as I mentioned before, is going to be retrograde as we enter the year, so that gives us a little bit of a message. But also for 10 weeks, from the 10th of March to the 15th of May, Mercury is going to be in your 12th house, which is where this total solar eclipse is occurring, and it is very close to Mercury in its retrograde. It's about a 5-degree orb. So what you can take from this, the 12th house is very much to do with the part of life that we may struggle to grapple with. So it can be to do with what's hidden, the more psychological, can be more spiritual dimension, can be very much to do with healing. That's the positive side of this solar eclipse. But the 12th house retrograde to your Mercury could mean that anxiety creeps in over the following 6 months, particularly around issues of trust and faithfulness. So that's really asking you a lot of questions about keeping the faith around the situations that are good, but also becoming more conscious of the situations that are not so positive for you. And in some ways, some of those situations can be purely atmospheric. So it's not necessarily that someone may be unpleasant or not a good person. It's just maybe their energy doesn't feed your energy in a way which is really positive. So with the lunar node access and this very potent 2 eclipses right at the start of the spring, you are really being asked to grapple with that 6th, 12th house dimension, the practicalities of the 6th and the more spiritual, psychological dimensions of the 12th. But those energies will provide a backdrop for the following 6 months. But as I mentioned, we then get the first of a new series, and that's in Pisces on the 18th of September. But that is very, very close to Neptune. For you, this is house 11, your longer term future, but also the collective, can be to do with friendships. If there is one particular cause or spiritual approach or some idealism that really calls out to you, this lunar eclipse is going to make you much more strongly aware of the need to integrate it into your life. But equally, it could see you disappointed in the following 6 months if some friends don't necessarily meet your expectations. So with Neptune creating a swirling mist, important to stay as grounded as you possibly can. But that brings us round to the annular solar eclipse, which occurs on the 2nd of October. But this one is very close to Mercury, just 1 degree away. So how you think around your professional work situation, your responsibilities and obligations, very 6th house, is going to be important. But if there was something that was rather challenging with the Aries solar eclipse, which occurred in April, particularly around a lack of communication coming through, I feel that you can get the resolutions to that by the time we get around to this second Libran lunation on the 2nd of October. So that gives you a feel for the eclipse series that's going on, but you can see that they do relate very closely to the positions of the nodal axis. Now, I mentioned before about Mercury. Mercury is very much about communication, and it is going to be retrograde at the start of this year in your 8th house. Anything to do with business, pension, finance, long-term involvements will need precision and care. But then having Mercury in your 12th house for 10 weeks could mean that you feel during that period a little bit isolated or cut off in some way from others, which could feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now we're going to have Mercury moving into your 4th house, very much to do with emotion and where you live and how you live there, from July the 2nd through to the 25th, when it moves into Virgo, which of course is your sister Earth sign. And Mercury then goes retrograde from August the 5th in Virgo right through to August the 15th, when it inverts back into Leo. So there may be something going on that you want to do that's more creative. It may be even to do with your social situation, but then you may have to check things out to see that it feels okay. Once more, it may appear that people are not communicating with you as immediately and as quickly as you would like. But Mercury does move back into Virgo on September the 9th, and it does go direct from the end of August, but in Leo. So some discussion around where you live, how you live there, but it could have a romantic dimension. Perhaps you're going to be inviting people around and playing host, something that you have a real gift for. But Mercury then makes its way back into Sagittarius on the 2nd of November. So that business sector, which it occupied at the start of the year, and goes back into retrograde on November the 26th through to the middle of December. So you can see that communication around where you feel passionate is actually going to be for you very psychological. And the emotional communication around the Earth grand trine at the start of the year, quite fiery. So it's a contrasting set of elemental energies you're going to be dealing with this year, and making sure that you're ready and prepared for this is vitally important. But what about your friends and your future direction? Because that's governed by the 11th house, where you have Saturn and Neptune. Just be aware that Saturn is retrograde from the 29th of June to the 15th of November, and Neptune from the 2nd of July to the 7th of December. But goals and success are very important to all of us, and Pluto really is, as I mentioned before, is going to give you some opportunities, but you probably have to go with the flow as it makes its way through the 10th house. You may find yourself from the 2nd of September to the 20th of December checking out from some big or bold plan and doing some rethinking as it resides back in Capricorn for one last time in this particular series, before bursting back into Aquarius on the 20th of December, where it's going to stay for the long term. Luck and money, Taurus? Well, Jupiter moving into your second solar house on the 26th of May definitely can bring you rewards in the second half of this year, but particularly if you work with that Libran solar eclipse, because that's asking you to find the productivity and the efficiency, or perhaps find a new role which suits you in a way that gives you personal satisfaction as well as being able to help other people. But in terms of your love life, we do have Venus moving on the 5th of August into the sign of Virgo, which for you is house 5. This would be an excellent time through to the end of August to be mixing and mingling and upping your vibration when it comes to trying to reach out and connect to others if you're single. Now, because you've got Jupiter in your sign right through to the 26th of May, there can be times this year when you can take some calculated, I wouldn't say gambles, but certainly bet on yourself in terms of if you get the instinct that you're drawn to someone, your ability to feel desirable is definitely enhanced, but it's going to be your love of food and wine that Jupiter taps into from the 26th of May. So if you are on any kind of diet plan, that could be challenged in the last part of this year, but I think you can have a lot of fun enjoying calorific goodies in the way that you have a real appreciation for. And relationships of all kinds for you can be enhanced from the 23rd of September through to the 17th of October as Venus moves through your opposite sign. Technically debilitated in Scorpio, but it gives you an opportunity to try to reach accords with people. You know, we live in a world that's very, very polarized. So sometimes just finding those points of agreement, those things that we can celebrate as having in common, can be a very joyful thing to do. So you can see whether it's through good food or good wine, or through the lovely buoyancy of your personality, your generosity of spirit, that there can be some very good things that come this year for you. But I think there is a theme, and that theme is towards understanding the balance between your inner world, the 12th house energy of the eclipses and the North Node, and the more practical outer world of the South Node and also the eclipses in Libra. But certainly, as you go into this year, that gorgeous grand Earth trine and that midpoint in your opposite sign are really lovely portents for you. I just think a lot of energy is formulating in your 12th house, so you could go through particularly in the spring, in the northern hemisphere, the autumn in the south, you could go through a period of uncertainty or feeling very bogged down. And that's why when astrologers say, look, you've got Jupiter in your sign, it's all going to be wonderful, it is very simple, a big simplification. There's a lot of big energies going on that you can work with and use to your advantage, but balancing that inner and outer world is at the core of this year's potential for you. It's been a real pleasure being with you, wishing you all the best. Please take care and like, comment, share or subscribe.